All right, so Fired Up Fridays is now Fired Up Freedom. I just want to do a little bit of a recap of season one. It was amazing. I had so much fun, a lot of amazing guests, a lot of great conversation. It was really, really awesome. If you're someone who wants to have a growth mindset, if you're someone who wants to take action and go towards your goals, then Fired Up Freedom is great for you. It doesn't matter if your goal is financial or personal. And now that we're moving into season two, we're going to be talking a lot of different things surrounding freedom. Fired Up Friday is now Fired Up Freedom. Am I going to let their thoughts of me stop me from doing what I'm doing? Stop me from walking toward my goals, or stop me from walking toward my path? The answer is an absolutely, as loud as I can, no!
I think you said a lot of things there, like and everything like that. But yeah, that's my whole thing. That's pretty much my lane, you know. But
Oh wow, sound like you got a lot of influences. Like who would
yeah,
you say is like your top?
life, right?
And so
Right.
what I don't get is why do people wait until. Well, hello there, family. You're listening to Fired Up Freedom with Steve Ryan. Fired Up Freedom. All right. Do you ever have moments where you feel stress, anxiety, or it's hard to sleep? Then meditation may be the perfect thing to help you. Come and join our meditation channel where there's 24 hours a day on demand meditation music. Go to steveryan.com/meditation. That's steveryan.com/meditation. It's time to have freedom from the noise. All right. Welcome to Fired Up Freedom. So today's episode is going to be season 1, episode 6. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with OMA, which stands for One Who May Ascend. Yeah, I think we addressed that in the episode. So, we talked about all kind of things, different topics, different subjects, what he's been doing with the music, some of his thoughts. He's a really good thought leader. He has a really good of graphs and perception of exploring and being adventurous and inquisitive, and he's very curious about the different sides of things. He'll even admit it. If you want to have a conversation that can go and it's inquisitive and is diving down these different rabbit holes, he's the guy for you. In fact, we have an episode later on where we did a Fired Up Friday episode live in Huntington Beach, and he ended up asking a lot of questions to that artist. So that was very interesting. So there's your proof. But no, it was a good conversation. It was a good conversation. A lot of thoughts about different things. So I think you'll enjoy it. But it is a pretty long one. That one went over an hour for sure. It didn't seem like it was over an hour by the time we were done, but it definitely went over an hour. So this may have to be an episode that you kind of listen to, pause for a moment, get some food, come back to, finish up. But I like his style, and you're going to definitely enjoy the episode. Now, before we get into the episode, I'm going to give just a little commentary. That's been the thing that I've been doing before episodes. And this is in general. I feel that it's important to not let what you think people's perception of you impact you to the point of paralyzing you. I say this because that's my attitude. My attitude is I don't care what people think. I don't care those perceptions. Um, Now, do I care about people in general? Yes. I want people to succeed. I want people to do well. I want people to achieve whatever freedom they want to achieve. That would be great. But am I going to let their thoughts of me stop me from doing what I'm doing? Stop me from walking toward my goals? Or stop me from walking toward my path? The answer is an absolutely, as loud as I can, no! I really want to say no! For those who can't see, that is something with the HE double hockey stick. No. It will not stop the path forward, because if we get so caught up in people's opinions and what they think, how can you get anything done? What I'm referring to is when people just get to the point where it's just they let people impact them so much that it kills their dream. It stops them from what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying that we can't learn. That's what mastermind and workshops are for. You learn, you strategize, you pivot, you know when to change strategies. So enjoy this episode coming up. It's going to be really good. It's one of those where there's some laughs, there's some healthy conversations. And enjoy. This wraps it up for Fired Up Friday. So the episode is coming up next. See ya. See, you caught that? It's not Fired Up Friday. This wraps it up for Fired Up Freedom. 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 I did that as Fired Up Friday is now Fired Up Freedom. Fired Up Friday is now Fired Up Freedom.
Marilyn Manson, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit. I don't care what people's perception of,
Right.
Wolves, foxes, they be out there, predators, looking for you to come up. Yeah.
Well, hello there, family. You're listening to Fired Up Freedom with Steve Ryan. Fired Up Freedom. All right. Do you ever look for certain services or products and it's just hard to find and you want to know if someone else has used that before? Well, visit my resources page, steveryan.com/resources, steveryan.com/resources. Fired Up Friday is now Fired Up Freedom. All right. Welcome to Fired Up Friday. Woo-woo! With Steve Ryan and my man, One Who Made Sin. All right.
What's up? What's
going on today? Like, what? We want to hear what kind of music you making. What's up?
Yeah. So I experiment with like a few different elements of sound. Primarily hip hop, rap bass. But also we incorporate elements of like metal and EDM, trap. Like a really aggressive, like intense, introspective type of energy. So like that's my whole take on it. I like to have like elements of like consciousness, like dispersed throughout the tracks and everything like that. So but yeah, that's my whole thing. That's pretty much my lane, But,
oh wow, sounds like you got a lot of influences. Like who would you say is like your top few influences?
Of a wide variety of influences. A lot of like old school rap, hip hop. Definitely DMX is up there, But yeah, if I would say like a top 5, top 10, like Tupac, Biggie, got to be in there. Eminem, Jay-Z, Nas, I like Big L. Like I said, DMX, Cannabis. I like. And so far as like contemporary, recent times, definitely Kendrick, Denzel Curry. I don't know how familiar you are with, that lane and everything, but yeah. So like, definitely a wide variety. So far as like metal, I'm not as, in tune, but I definitely have metal influences. Marilyn Manson, Linkin Park. Limp Bizkit. I don't care what people's perception of my taste is or whatever. Um, but yeah, I like a lot of stuff. A wide variety of different things.
Yeah, I know one of your songs. I was like, he got to have some funk somewhere. Like you can it just somewhere buried down underneath.
What did you check out by chance?
I forget the exact name of it, but it was just a way that it was just it didn't remind me of typical hip hop. It was like a difference.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, all right, I can vibe with this. Like it reminds me of like if somebody wasn't fully all hip hop, like if they were into other genres, they could still connect to your stuff.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. Now that you bring that up, yeah, some of my more like old school underground influences, like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, like Hieroglyphics.
Okay.
Yeah. So like definitely in my original sound, we've kind of like evolved and we have like, yeah. So like it depends, and I had to ask that, because like what era were you listening to? Like that kind of gives me some more context. I could tell you because my influences change, just like life change. And that's also a ever prominent, I guess, theme, or concept, in my music as well. Like we as individuals on the individual level evolve and change over time, so it only makes sense. It's just natural, that our personalities do, our sound does, because if you like stagnate, that there's no growth, and growth is an essential part of my brand and who I am, and if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So we can't
that. If you're not growing, you're dying.
The university is forever expanding, you know what I mean? So I just like to be a conduit, and a reflection of my perception of the universe, and I hope to broaden that perspective out and communicate that as effectively as possible, between each of us, So,
right.
But yeah,
that makes sense. And,
right.
I know big question that everybody's gonna have: where did One Who May Ascend come from? Like, where's the? I know you've been asked that before. I know, man.
Right. That name, right? Yeah. No, for sure. So, to begin with, my original name, my given name by my parents was Omari Malik Ahmed. So I just took the initials, and it was OMA. And so at first I was just OMA, and that's even why. You'll hear me in my music sometimes, like I still say like OMA, and that's why it's OMA, not OWMA,
Okay.
So, and then from just addressing myself as OMA, I was in college rapping and everything like that. And one of the homies, like my top fan at the time, he was like, OMA, I like that. He coined the term One Who May Ascend, And I was like, yo, that's kind of hard. So it just kind of like stuck like that. And yeah, I've been rocking with it ever since. And, he had his own connotations associated with that name to begin with, and I had mine. And, with that, it just kind of evolved over time, just like, the themes of growth and evolution and everything that we just spoke about,
Right.
So it's like one who may ascend, into your purpose. And that the name itself that's what makes the name so unique too. It's not specific. It's not individual specific,
Right.
It can apply to every person differently based on their connotations, associated with the name. Like, I've heard some people think like it's a Christian organization, and it can be,
Right.
That's not all it is in my perception, but just like we have all these different phrases, and no language is perfect, right? But a whole bunch of people could say the word love, for example. That's probably like the best, easiest, most universal example. You can ask 10 different people what the word love means to them, and you might get like 10 different answers. Or even with that, the people that answered one way may answer a different way if you ask them, years later or years before, that type of thing. So the name itself is ever evolving as we are, and it's also a commentary on the duality of man as well, because there's the possibility that you may not ascend, or you know what, you may ascend, but that's according to one person's perspective as opposed to another person's perspective. You know, you to them you may be ascending, but to somebody else you may be descending or whatever. So it's just all this, you know, a duality. It's a commentary on the universal perspective, you know. And when I make music, it's often not just from my, you know, perspective, because that's limited, but it could also be from a perspective of a particular group of people. It could be or throughout the course of history, you know, that type of thing. So that's a little bit behind the name and my perspective of it, how it came, of the origins and everything like that. Yeah.
So basically, it came from like fan supporter, and then it sounds like it's evolved into who you've evolved into,
Right.
which goes back to the beginning of this, where you were like, I'm everything, metal, hip hop, this, that, you know, like ever evolving, like not wanting to be boxed in.
Can't be limited, you know.
Yeah.
No limitations. You know?
Right. So it seems like your audience, like you, like a supporter or a listener of your music is going to be somebody who's open-minded and who
Right.
who really wants to ascend.
That's definitely another essential, you know, theme reoccurring in the brand. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of this old show on TV, Stargate, like Stargate Atlantis, and in that all they did was talk about ascension. We're trying to ascend, you know, like, and really it kind of relates to what you're saying, but in a different way, because that was more about they're shedding everything. They're shedding the body. They're just energy, and they're getting rid of anything that holds them back. So if we compare that to like who you are, that's what it sounds like you're doing, like not in the same way as the show, but in your own way. Any limitations you want to hold back, you know, you might decide to do country with some metal, with some rock on a song. Who knows?
Right. No, that's exactly. I feel like I'm gonna have to check that out now. Stargate. That sounds really good. Because it really relates to, like, I really resonated with what you said. It's like shedding, you know, like the outer layers, you know, and focusing more inward, you know, and yeah, that comes with like identity, right? And eventually when you start shedding like these superficial layers of what we call our identity, right? We all realize that we are one, you know, we embody this bigger universal consciousness, you know, and that ties into the name as well. You know?
Right.
So no,
that makes sense. Yeah. So do you how are you with like collaborating with other artists? Like, how do you view collaborations? Because I know some people view it like competition, you know, we're gonna have a beef, and then others is more collaborating.
Yeah. For one, I'm going to start off with saying two things. I'm really open to collaborate with like any and everybody, as long as the song makes sense for me contextually, you know, really. You know, like I've had this like I've internalized this saying, like, I'm a sucker for a good song, you know. Right. So like, as long as that makes sense to me too. I do want to do like more collaborations, you know. I feel like I don't have, and I have a couple. I have, come to think of it, I do have like quite a few, low key. But I'm always going back to the name, right? Like that, you know, you're sharing a platform, you're bonding with somebody, like another human being, and not just that individual, but like their whole fan base. You're resonating with their frequency, right? So that gives me another additional perspective, you know, that I can add like in my Batman utility belt, you know, so to speak. You know, so like, okay, I can draw from this inspiration and vice versa. Now, so far as the competition aspect of it, I wouldn't say there is an element of competition, but like I'm always, the way I look at it, at least, I'm always competing with myself, my previous self to do better. Like that again, tying back into the name. Like I truly embody this. This is like who I am. And like people ask me or give me a hard time, like, why don't you go by your name instead of like a title or something like that? Because like it's not for me. I don't really, how do you say, subscribe to the idea that we are here for ourselves, like
Right.
I feel like we're here for a greater purpose, so like if I can give like people something to aspire to, like as well as myself,
Mhm.
like we create this iconic, legendary, mythological figure or creature of ourselves, so it gives us a standard to look up to or something to aspire to, as opposed to like, a name is or a title is just something that you were in the past, like I'm trying to look forward, but I'm kind of getting off topic here, going back to the name.
Oh, no,
But
no, go ahead. It's making sense.
my bad. You got to stop me. Let me know when I'm just like going off on a tangent, because like I said, like this is really who I am. Like so, like this really gets me going, But yeah. So far as the competition aspect, I'm really only competing with myself, and my previous self. But like, there's this fine line between competing with myself and also, like I said, resonating with the frequency, of the other artists, So like there's a fine line, and that's kind of a part of the puzzle. Like for me, I don't know, maybe yeah, I can ask you for your perspective on this,
Mhm.
being an artist as well. Um, you ever feel like making music is kind of like a puzzle? It's kind of like a challenge, Like I have this thing myself personally, like I don't like making the same song twice, So like a lot of my music will be like totally different. They'll have like similar themes, maybe, or like qualities, but like there aren't really two, like other than maybe like production, there aren't really two songs that are like quite alike, quite similar to one another. So I always find like that's always an objective, a challenge of mine, to make something unique, different, maybe something that can appeal to another audience. Like if we're taking this analogy, this theme of traveling outside of our comfort zone into a specific, a specified direction, right? You're not, unless you're going in circles, you're not going to make the same footprint twice. You know what I mean?
True.
So
True.
like, I don't know. That's just how my mind works. And especially with collaborating with other artists, so that gives me a different frequency to vibe on entirely. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's also a question for you as well. You ever like, do you look at making music as like a challenge, or like a puzzle?
Well, for me, that piece isn't a challenge for me. The challenge for me personally is I hear so much music at the same time in my head that
Hmm.
sometimes it's hard to I have
Channel.
to separate it. You know what I mean? Like I
Okay.
may work on 3 or 4 songs at the same time. Like I had a dream about it. I'm hearing all these instruments and all this different stuff. I'm hearing like the whole song, like everything. You know what I mean? So sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge.
That's
You
right.
know?
I hear you. I resonate with that. I don't have that as often, but I have had that before. That's
Yeah.
that's interesting. It's like different channels, and so what do you do with that? Do you like record it like all at once, or like do some things maybe get forgotten, or
Well,
left by the wayside?
Well, what I normally do is like if something hits my head, I'll try to get on the keyboard and because if I just bebop it in the voice note, it may be harder to remember like what was the texture, what was the tone of that. But if
Yeah.
I can at least get the rhythm of what I was trying to, what I'm hearing, at least on the keyboard, now I have it as a reference.
Hmm.
And
Right.
something that I've started doing lately, I would say this year, because sometimes I co-produce too, and I've been doing like playlists where I'll try to, if I'm let's say I was helping to co-produce a song with you, what I would do is like get these playlists and try to get not copy the songs, but to see okay, what element of the song am I hearing? Am I hearing a guitar? Am I hearing a piano? What type of guitar? All right. Am I hearing a dirty guitar, a clean guitar? And then if I can find a song that has the guitar that I'm looking for, now that's a reference, and I tag it like this song is for this, this type of guitar. That way, if I need to go back to my notes, it's a reference. Because the mind says it's easy to remember that if it's just one song. But if you've done this like 10, 20, 30, 40 songs, you're not going to remember 10 songs back what you were trying to remember. So I think like for us as artists, to some degree, we all need to know how to do something like that, regardless of what our genre is, so that when you're creating, you can speak the same language of other musicians and artists and producers and say, hey, this is what it was in my head, this sound, and this is how I want this sound to go. So, which leads to another thing, which is you just mentioned that you hate repeating the same thing twice. Well, it's almost like that might can be a challenge for yourself. Like, okay, can I go at this similar thing, but with a different twist?
Yeah.
Since you hate doing that and you never know what you might come up with.
Right.
So yeah. Hopefully that answered your question.
No, absolutely. And I'm starting to get in production myself. Maybe I'm dabbling like here and there for like the past year or so. And what you said, I'm definitely going to take tips and like labeling things. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
It makes it easier. It makes it easy, man. That really is what all that production boils down to, especially if you're an artist and you're into production. You got to find a way to track stuff.
Right.
There is just, other than that, it's going to get lost. Right. Unless it's a tune that really stands out, like a song, like you got that one or two songs that just stand out, and they're not going to go away until you get them out.
Okay. So, that checks out. And going back to this analogy, you said tracking something. You know, you have to track all of these things, and I feel like that's essential for growth. And like development in ourselves. Like we have to, to make progress. It has to be trackable and measurable, right? So like time, for example. If we're going to see that we're heading in that direction, there's this saying, how can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, right? Because otherwise you're just going in circles. Right. So like, like we have to know our history to know like our future. And there's also the other saying, like, there's nothing new under the sun,
That's true.
Yeah. So like, I'm learning how to produce myself. And I'm definitely going to be taking tips on everything that you just said. Like, and it's another thing to bring up another analogy. I find it, I don't know. It's kind of been weird. It's because I'm contextualizing like this past year, maybe the past 2 years or so, where I've been slipping more and more into production, because at first I was like I said, I was trying to get away from like creating like the same thing over and over. Maybe this could be another question for you too. Do you ever feel like once I'm not going to say like mastered your craft, because I don't know if there's ever such a thing, but when you feel like you're coming into yourself of like developing, like crystallizing a style, like I don't know if you're familiar with like the Bruce Lee quote of there is no style, like be like water, my friends.
Right.
And not subscribing to a style, but being formless, shapeless, like water. But do you ever feel like when you're finding like your sound and you're crystallizing that, do you feel like you have less of a palette to work with, or do you feel like you've colored in everywhere? I remember like there was an Eminem interview or analogy that I was watching. He said it's getting hard for him to like create something new, and I think it was Eminem and Lil Wayne, and they were interviewing each other, and they said they have to like look up, they have to Google their lyrics to make sure it was something that they hadn't repeated already, like lyrically, because like if you're an artist and you have like this palette, this template to work with, these constraints, so to speak, and you feel like, like when you just start, it's one thing, you have like all of this room to work with. But when you've been painting and you've been at it for like 20 years, like plus, and you have like that longevity and the accolades and accomplishments, etc., I guess like a couple of different things that could happen. You could be either boxed in artistically by yourself, and your own personal perceived limitations and restraints, etc. Or, whatever fan base that you have could start to limit you as well. I was just having this discussion with a homie about you familiar with Kid Cudi, right?
Oh yeah.
And he kind of started painting and drawing outside of the lines, and his fan base is like, nah, bro, I don't like this, I don't and he started getting like backlash in that sense. Or, I guess out of the three possibilities, you could become a caricature of yourself. And it's like one of those things where art imitates reality. I forget the saying, something like that, where, like you become known so well for this one thing and specialized in this one thing. Like it's kind of like what we learn in the program. It's like you focus on the top percentage of your results. So if you see that this one thing is working like really well, why do you have to do anything else? Like McDonald's, like we have this menu, right? We're not selling anything else but burgers. Why don't we just stick to selling burgers, right? Like, and you start becoming like a grotesque like figure of yourself, and like, okay, like now you're a one trick pony, kind of thing, and you again box yourself in, and I don't want to be like contained like in any of that, so like that's why I said that's kind of like what led me to the moment where I was like, I feel like I got my pen game on point, so I'm gonna go over here to production. And I haven't mastered production like in any in any capacity, but I'm just starting to hear, like, even in myself, like it's starting to sound it's starting to get repetitive, and like that kind of like turns me off. It's like, okay, this is gross now, like this, like. And so like I don't know what that's gonna lead to. I don't know if that's gonna like lead to like a fusion, like immersion of the two. But and I kind of forgot my original question.
It was about being boxed in.
Right. You feel like mastery like leads to you being boxed in? I don't know. They have like so many different examples. Like I look at Picasso too, and like he was originally boxed in, right? If you see his work when he was 25 as opposed to like, I don't know, like 75 or like 95, two totally different things.
Right. It's that growth.
Right. And like, I also think, like my homie who gave me the name, we were talking and everything like last night, like he trains, he lifts weights, right? And he's really heavy into, at first he was in powerlifting, now he's in bodybuilding. And I guess there's kind of that same similar aspect to it as well of growth. If we sculpt our careers or our art, sculpture, he's sculpting his body, and he has to break through those limitations that he once had to evolve, into something else. So I don't know, what's your perspective on that, baby?
Well, I think it depends on, the person, your personality, how you think, how you approach things, because for me, I'm my worst, I'm not going to say critic, but I'm always about growth. So even if other people say I've mastered something, I don't personally see myself as that way. And I'm always
internalize it. Right.
Looking to expand. And when it comes to, like you were mentioning Eminem, feeling boxed in and things like that, I kind of go by a different tune to where, like, I'm going to do what I feel, and whoever likes it, and whoever don't. So it just means, if some supporters don't like this group of stuff, then they can just hang out with the other stuff until I come back around to it.
See, and I hear you. And I totally did I cut you off?
Oh, no, you good.
Okay. I hear you, and I respect that, but okay. So just to add another element, another layer, icing on the cake, right? So we as artists, as individuals, etc., we have our own personalized goals, and aspirations. And sometimes, tell me if I'm wrong here, those can be incompatible, not always, but can potentially be incompatible with reality, right? So if we're talking about like having commercial success, for example, and you see like this one thing is selling really well, like fucking like Instagram likes, right? You
Mhm.
know, um, I've heard like people see what's working well with them for their fan base in the algorithm, right? So they keep doing that same thing as opposed to experimenting, but now they've been boxed in by the constraints they've placed on themselves in regards to their fan base, you know. And we talked about like McDonald's, commercially successful, but I guarantee you, like a lot of other places, people, whoever can make a much better hamburger, etc., but
Right.
commercially successful,
Right.
So like, I guess the challenge is always like finding that fine line between your growth as an artist, on the individual level, and
Mhm.
what resonates with the masses, like commercially, So like, I
No.
guess that's always the debate, right?
It
So
it just depends on where you're at.
yeah, right,
Depends on where you're at, what you're wanting, what's important to you.
what you
Like if someone is an artist who's gotten successful and now they're making a great living off this one thing, it's going to be harder to veer off if they're dependent upon that. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But
yeah,
if they're not as dependent on that and they're all about what they want to do, it starts to matter a little bit less. I mean, I can get it from both angles because as a business person, I understand that when you turn on a certain channel, you expect to see, you're not going to be looking at History Channel for what's on sci-fi. So I understand that, with the marketing aspect of giving people what to expect, but it all boils down to if you're just experimenting a little bit or if this has become who you are. And then that's like take Pink, for example. When she first started off, she was great. She had like a couple of great R&B songs and they tried to box her into that.
mm,
And once she got successful with that R&B, I think it was like Most Girls or some song, I forget the name of the song. But when she got successful with that, she took a chance. See, if other people had took this chance, they could have been like shelved, put on the shelf, or not succeed. But she took a chance and went over to what she wanted to do,
right,
and it's blown up. It's actually working even better. The fans came with her.
right,
Whereas you have someone like Sheryl Crow. Don't get me wrong, I love Sheryl Crow, but when she evolved from the pop style to the country style, just based on what I've seen when I've researched it, it hasn't translated as well as Pink's did, if we
mm,
were to compare it. But she's financially okay, so she
right,
still is on that path. And whoever don't like it, just don't like it. They can just listen to their old stuff, So it works both ways. And another thing an artist can do is like if you feel like you're getting tired of something or boxed in, start experimenting with other genres.
yeah.
Start experimenting with music you hate. Now that's a challenge right there. If you
That's
can,
why I hear Dr. Dre does.
yeah,
You listen to stuff that nobody else listens to that he don't even want to listen to.
yeah. Because if you can do something with something that you take an element from some, like whenever I'm building a song, I always even after I'm done with the main part, I always try to say, okay, what's something I'm not going to say hate, but something that probably isn't my taste. And I'll try to see if I can get an element of that. And it ends up just changing the whole, like, wow, okay. But I think at the end of the day, it's a fine line. You got to do what fits you. And if it's too far off, it might just end up being another brand.
I think you said a lot of things there. Like, and I like taking what you say and like broadening it out, like, because like, excuse me, for everything, can be used as an analogy, and we could use all of this for like life, right?
Yeah.
Like go and talk to people that you don't like, or run at fear, right? And you might learn something, and that's what all of this and my music, is about. Like all of this is like the grounds, like the training grounds for broadening our perspective, on life, and becoming that one,
Right.
instead of just identifying with a particular segment, of society,
Right.
etc. But yeah, there were some other things in there that you said too. I think there were like at least two other things. Um, I didn't want to bring this up just yet, but it kind of reminds me of the Prince versus Michael Jackson debate. You know, you got one like more commercially successful, and then you have the other one like they would say like, he's the true artistic expression of the soul, right?
Right.
So like I guess I think one of my questions to you would have been, so what do you do? Like it seems like, and maybe that's not a fair question because it all depends on like the context of the artist and where they are in their career,
Right.
etc., and like their approach. Like do you put like the cart before the horse? Which one
Right.
do you value? So yeah, maybe I guess that's all up to an interpretation. I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have an opinion about it. Like my opinion is this, and I know it may not be the easiest thing for everyone to do because some of us have the right brain, some have the left brain, some have both brains. But I think like as artists, as they're generated, first of all, I think all artists, and this is just my opinion, should take some business classes, look at some business webinars, subscribe to business people, learn, even if you hate business, learn business anyway, because with the artists and with the money of things is so up and down. There's no constant. So if you can, as you're making money, learn to invest the money and eventually have your lifestyle to where, I'm not trying to go too much on the tangent because I'll go on a tangent on this side. So, but have it to where you're not dependent upon the money from the artistry and get to that point, then it's more free. Because I feel like a lot of what you just asked, a lot of it is based on a person's situation, how much they need money in that moment for their living. Are they bound by any contracts with any labels or any other parties? I think you have all that. So it just depends on the person. I mean, and you can have someone who stays in their lane and make that, but then make some stuff outside of that. And maybe, if it gets to a point where they're enjoying both, they might have to separate the other part into another brand. I mean, that's what I did with the motivational speaking stuff. That's a whole separate brand. Fired Up Freedom will be right back after these messages. Come and tap into the world of the Freedom Community. Do you love having conversations with other like-minded people? Then the Freedom Family Community is great for you. Visit steveryan.com today. The Abundant Lion. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that as Steve Ryan, I don't come on and say some motivational things. Right. But when you turn on Steve Ryan, you might get music, or they know they're going to get either music or poetry or other artists, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With maybe some motivational stuff in there. You go to Abundant Lion, that's all motivational mindset, business. That's all that. That's the brand. And it had to be separated because if I had kept it all under Steve Ryan, it would have been confusing.
Yeah.
You can mix poetry with music, but it's hard to mix motivational as a separate genre with the music. It's very difficult.
But that's all who you are, though.
Exactly. So now you got Steve Ryan and you got the Abundant Lion. It's the same person, but they're separated because they have different audiences. Some audience blend over both. Some like the motivation, hate the music. Some love the music, hate the motivation. Some love both. I'm fine either way. Just come into the community.
Right. That's kind of another question I was going to ask. And maybe some of these questions are more specific towards you, but like, do you have a focus or even a preference on either one, or is it just?
I love them both passionately.
Okay.
It's almost like trying to tear two twins apart.
Yeah.
It's I love them both. If I had to shut one down, I wouldn't. It's no way, because motivating people and inspiring people, that's my core. And from what I get about you from the time I've known you, you come across to me as like a deeper thinker Like you don't like to think in the box, and you like to put things out in the way to where people can kind of like come to a conclusion themselves. You're not really big on trying to tell people what to think. It's more of like, I'm drawing you this body of water with and it's up to them to call it a lake.
Right.
So and that's in your music. Like regardless of whether is Oma from the past or one who may ascends now in the future, all that is within you. That's like a similar characteristic.
Yeah. That's interesting and heartwarming that you say that, because that lets me know that I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
You always get that positive affirmation.
Yeah, because this wasn't planned. It's not like we're going to say this on the thing. It was just like, okay, we just gonna flow with it. That's just the impression I get. That's what I get. Like it's interesting because it comes across like you're not going to just be just another hip hopster. It's going to be different. You don't know what you're going to get with you, and that is your brand. So actually, you have freedom from that stuff you just talked about.
Okay.
because people are expecting, they may get a little metal in it, they may get that. Now, the reason I'll tell you why commercial success, and this is just my take on it. Commercial success, the reason why they try to box it in is because they're about numbers and analytics first.
Right.
Yeah, because you have to understand, I had the opportunity for 3 different record deals, and I turned them all down, and everybody who wasn't into major music, family and all that was like, you're stupid and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, nope, you're not stupid. Because you do the math, you can make more with blah, 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 blah. But the reason why they box people in is because with marketing, it's like targeting. They want to target certain people, and it's more expensive to target more people. They want to
you can track it, something that you could track.
Yeah, and they want to be able to pin it. So it's all about the money. It's all about the business model. Who's to say your fans won't like them all?
Right.
Who's to say they won't like all that? And then whoever the person you mentioned that went outside of that box and some of the fans didn't like it, how do they know that was the majority of the fans? Maybe that was just the loudest voices. Because sometimes the negative voices can be the loudest voices. And you kind of have to, this is where it comes into going with your gut. Like if your gut is telling you you're on to something, you almost have to see it through, because that negative soothsayer is going to come through first a lot of the times. Like, nah, that sounds like crap. It's like, well, turn that off. Wait till you get to the ones that say, hey, wow, this is awesome. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that I like what you're doing is you're trying to be true to yourself. No, you're not trying. You are being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you do that and keep honing your craft and create a way, you're going to be all right. Your fans going to come with you.
I'm glad you think so.
Oh yeah, I know so, man. This isn't about me today, but I'm a walking example of it. Because a lot of times, a lot of my music, if you were to check out a lot of my music, especially before like what's coming out now, a lot of it didn't fit commercial. And a lot of people say, oh, you need to go at it this way. Like I did album Nothing But Live. I said, I don't want any electronic sounds. I want all live instruments. Oh, don't do that. It's not. And okay, yeah, it didn't hit top 40, but it still generated publishing and licensing, and it's on radio at different places around the world. So to me, that was an accomplishment.
Right.
To be able to do that in the world of electronics.
Right.
So that's why I say this is relative to about what you want as a person. If it's all about the financial success, then I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with wanting financial success. I'm not saying that at all, but it's going to have to be a point to where you figure out a way to generate the finances. If you truly want to be like more toward creativity, even if that means sacrificing some commercial models, you're going to have to find a way to have the money generating separately. Yeah. That way you won't be held hostage by what you're thinking you're supposed to do. That's my opinion about it.
Yeah, and that's the opposite of freedom, and that's and that's what I do this for,
Yeah.
freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because at the end of the day, you only need so much money. Like, really. Just saying. I mean, unless you just want, you got to have the bigger house, you got to have the bigger this. You want a private jet. I mean, if you can fly first class everywhere you go, I mean, you can buy a ticket anytime. I mean, like, so, I mean, I'm not saying having, riches isn't, like a bad thing, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to our priorities. That's
Right.
how I feel about it.
Right.
And that answers really all of those questions that you have. You know what I mean? Because if it's about the music and you got your people with you connecting to you through the music, you're going to be all right.
Right.
And not only that, but if you have anything else you do outside of music that is still part of you, you
Go
can
for it.
build that at the same time.
Fired Up Friday is now Fired Up Freedom.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
those are-
Well, it was good having you on today. And for
Yeah.
everybody who's listening, his website is www.onewhomayascend.com. That's ONEWHOMAYASCEND.com. And if you love what he's doing, you want to join his street team, just go to go.onewhomayascend.com.
Awesome. Thanks again.
All
so much.
right.
I really appreciate it. Let me know when it's out. I didn't mean to hold you so long. You might
Oh,
have to,
no, you good.
segments or parts or something like that. But yeah, let me know. Let me know when it's out.
All right. And this wraps it up for this edition of Fired Up Friday. Woohoo!
Running from myself at times I can't describe the words I try.